Kia ora again, colleagues. Welcome to today's meeting of the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee. What we'll do is open up our karakia, which is now displayed on the screens. Do feel free to join in with me. Mi noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. So just apologies, put apologies for lateness in for Mayor Barry. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parkin. All in favour say aye. I declare that carried. Today we have no public comment, so we're moving on to conflicts of interest. Any conflicts from members? No? Brilliant. On to item 5, the first report, which is the update on solid waste and waste minimisation matters. Jeff, do you want to come up to the table? Welcome, Jeff. Take the report as read. If there's anything that you want to touch on or highlight, please do so, then we'll open for questions.
Kia ora koutou. The only updates I have at the moment to this report are that the contamination number for January is 14.9%, so still bouncing around in that sort of stubborn range. The other, this is another thought to the climate change report. I'll save that. Everything else in here, taking it as read. Just highlighting, I guess, the success of the team in terms of that diversion scrum. Yeah, a bit of feedback here. Is that me or? Okay, thank you. Just highlighting the success of that diversion scrum day and the way that more hands on deck and a real focus on the task of diverting material from the landfill rather than just an open pit, as it were. It makes a huge difference, and so the team's really looking at how to maximise that approach and working with our partners, Waste Management and Earthlink, to really extend that and hopefully see some further dividends and diverting from landfill into the future. So that's a key highlight there. But otherwise, I'm open to questions on the report.
Thanks, Jeff. First up, Deputy Mayor Loss.
Thank you. It's a great report. All these reports are good today. What I'm interested in is the one about the solid waste management and minimisation, or not the bylaw, the diverting with working with developers at their place of work. So it's 12 and 13 on page 8. And I just wondered, is two things. Is there anybody in the volunteer base or other businesses that support construction sites to take away at that time? Do you know of? One question.
Yes, very good question. Interestingly enough, we've just come out of a meeting with a guy who founded an app called Civil Share, and it's basically an online sharing platform for people who, constructing, or firms who are dealing with construction and demolition and the waste streams that come out of that, and they can sort of post the opportunity to reuse material. And it's had some success in Auckland, but they're looking to sort of scale it up around the country. So we're keen to promote that as a way of assisting developers and construction firms to divert more from landfill and keep material in use.
That's brilliant. And the other question was, if we have something like this as a policy intended to, ensure developers manage their sites, will we have the resources here to do that? Like, that would mean an officer to check sites and that?
Yeah, so there is funding through the waste levy to support actions from the waste management and minimisation plan, and this is one of them. So we would apply that funding to this end. Yeah.
Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for the report. There's some really good stuff going on here. My question is in regards to page 8, paragraph number 8, and I was a bit shocked to see that we have an average litter account of about 1,000 items per square metre. So my question was it attributed to that microplastics discharge? I vaguely remember reading about in the paper a year or so ago, and if that's the case, has that avenue been plugged up or stopped, or?
Sorry, I'm not aware of that currently. Andrew, did you want to come and speak to data point?
I mean, how can we be so
Kia ora.
off the
So
scale?
that figure came from the litter monitoring program that Hutt City Council commissions sustainable coastlines to undertake. So they've got a nationally standard way of calculating litter per area. And that's the same across the country. So I think to answer your question, they can get down to the level which you can actually identify as litter or sort of non-natural items. So I imagine it probably goes down to maybe granules of plastic, but maybe not so much the microplastics.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. The recyclable materials collected at curbside are now standardised across the whole country as of, I think, the beginning of this month. And there's some really good work we can see going on here into diverting some of the other bigger stuff. Construction and demolition was mentioned in the FOGO as well. As I know you're aware, there are other councils who are now collecting other household items, like batteries is one example. Most of the councils in the region are now collecting batteries either through council facilities or partner organisations. Some of them are partnering up for plastic lids and things like that. Have we got any plans in play for any of those other household items that can't go on curbside to help our community to collect and recycle those?
Not currently. On the battery front, there are ways in which you can recycle batteries through Mitre 10, I think in Bunnings as well. So there's retail outlets that are supporting that. Likewise with soft plastics. I know that we do supply a bin for, I think the Eastbourne Library has a battery recycling bin. And so we're open to opportunities certainly to supporting more battery recycling in particular. But we're also, it will be part of further exploration into what other avenues we can take, and as we partner with the other councils in the region, we can certainly piggyback off their ideas. So we'll be looking to do that.
Councillor Shaw, another question.
Sorry, I meant to bring this up before. Page 11, about litter and illegal dumping. Is curb dumping, is it illegal or an illegal practice? Because there are two places that really bother me. One's in Taita and one's down in Moera, and both are outside apartments or flats where there's a large amount of dumping on the curb. Who's responsible for moving that stuff? Is it the Body Corp or Kāinga, or do we have some controls in there?
If it's on public land, then we end up removing it through our contractors. So a complaint is made or it's picked up by a council officer, and then it's a contractor intergroup will go and collect it and dispose of it. Yep.
I suppose in regards to the Taita site, then stuff is dumped every day without fail, and it builds up, and then someone comes and takes it away. Is there someone, us, are we paying for that, or should Kāinga be responsible for that?
I know we have a dedicated resource and environmental regulation team that does undertake investigations of dumpings sort of in the urban sphere. And I know that they have issued infringement notices when they've been able to identify the dumpers.
So the dumpers get fined, not the Kāinga?
No, if they can identify the people involved, then they get issued an infringement notice directly.
Councillor Mitchell. Then Councillor Brown.
Just as a follow-up, because I see exactly the same thing in my neighbourhood, actually, outside particular Kāinga Ora developments. And it's people who don't know or don't care how our rubbish and recycling system works. It's not, other people coming in there. So just curious if there's a pattern and if we see that happening and we're trying to issue infringements where we can to the people responsible, but are we in dialogue with Kāinga Ora as well to let them know of these issues at their properties?
Yeah, we are in communication with Kāinga Ora specifically around curbside collection and bins and contamination because it is a fairly regular issue. So we're looking to build a better partnership with them, but we haven't specifically targeted like the cleanliness or dumping activities around their housing at the moment, but we can add that to an agenda for our next meeting with them. Yeah.
Councillor Brown.
Two questions. The education campaign, it says you've gone into phase 2. Is phase 2 the bin removal, or not sure what you've got that you're into phase 2 now? And there's been 238 bins removed, and you said that contamination goes down after that. Do those households get the bin back? Do they get an opportunity to rectify their behaviour? How long does the bin go for? And I've got a question about another question after that.
The first, I think you're asking, is it the contamination campaign in terms of the media campaign phase? We might be talking about that. Yeah. Yes, so that's a media campaign to change behaviour around recycling, improve recycling, so bus backs and billboards and social media. So that's one part of what we're doing. The other part is the bin removal scheme. Andrew can speak a bit more to that.
When a bin is removed, it is removed for a minimum of 6 months, and the onus is on the resident to contact us to instigate the bin being returned. I don't have the figures off the top of my head about how many bins have been returned, but I think out of the out of the 200 odd that have been removed, only 2 residents have sought their bins back.
Well, just a follow-up question on that. That's probably not behaviour change, eh? For those, the very worst, because they will now just put all their recycling in the rubbish bin.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not really behaviour change. I guess there's 2 planks to it. One is behaviour change, where we can reach people whose behaviour will change, and then there's managing, I guess, a small set of the population whose behaviour might never change, and we've got to manage the contract to try and reduce that contamination rate, which has costs to council. So sort of a 2-step process, really, trying to tackle 2 different types of the problem.
All right, thank you, members. Do you have a final question?
Just on the demolition waste, where are we at with Cleanfill? The progress with Cleanfill?
So we don't currently have any plans to support a Cleanfill in the Hutt City area, but we're open to obviously private developers. If they wanted to select and consent a site for doing that, that's fine. There are some quarries in the region that are limited cleanfills, and one of them has recently relaxed their requirements, so they're looking at receiving more material or a wider range of material rather than just a limited high quality material. So that will go some way to relieving the issue. But we are definitely aware of the issue for development of land and the need for a clean fill. But as far as I'm aware, council's decided that that's not a priority for council to provide.
Thank you, Jeff and Andrew, for responding to the questions. Now drawing attention for members to page 7, just the noting recommendation that we receive this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is there any discussion? All in favour say aye. Those against? I declare that carried. Thank you both. Now moving on to item 6 on page 15, update on Council's climate change work. Miriam, welcome up to the table. And any of the team that you want alongside. Again, if you want to highlight anything in the report, please do so. Take it as read, and then we'll open for questions.
Kia ora. So I'd like to take this report as read. I'm filling in for Ewan today, so just want to note if there may be some questions that I'm unable to answer, but I'm happy to note them down and come back to you with an answer when I can get that information. Really, the only things I'd like to highlight is just that there's a bit of a theme here. We've got 3 progress points on electrification, the Mackenzie Baths, which have been open since the beginning of the season, and now we've had a few months behind us seeing that they are tracking well and performing well, so that's excellent. The solar panel installation at the Silverstream landfill has also gone well, and we've been able to move completely away from grid electricity for that particular building. And then also there's been some progress with the heavy EV charging hub that has been proposed at the Silverstream landfill. So, yep, that's exciting to see that moving forward, but happy to move on to questions now.
Okay. Members, any questions? Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you. I had a question about the Low Carbon Acceleration Fund, which is mentioned briefly in this paper, and the question doesn't relate to the other paper on it, so I'll ask it now. And it's to do with the scope of the fund. When we agreed to establish this fund a year or so ago, one of the conditions was that funding should avoid duplicating the scope of existing funding sources that are available elsewhere, particularly government funding, I think. I was just looking at the criteria on our website now that it's listed there, and I'm not sure that that is captured on there. It mentions a couple of other particular funds that it won't cross over with, but says that we won't fund projects that already receive funding for the same purpose from another public investment fund. That's a bit different from not overlapping our scope with theirs at all. So we kind of agreed that we would have separate scope like that. The way it's worded there suggests that if I applied to the government and didn't get funding, then I'd be eligible for this council funding instead, or if I didn't even know about the government funding and came straight to council, that I'd be eligible instead of being directed back to the government. So I don't know if that's something we can correct in the information on the website, but it doesn't quite capture, I think, what we agreed to for the scope of our fund to not overlap with any other particularly government funds.
Thank you for that. I've noted that down. I'll go back through and review what that wording is and explore whether or not we can just clarify specifically what we're aiming to do with this fund and make sure that we're not having any duplication. So happy to take that on board. Thanks.
Further questions from members? Fantastic, getting off easy today and you instead. So on page 15, we've got 2 recommendations. The first one is just noting the update and the work streams that are currently underway. The second is noting that some work streams are not explicitly covered in Council's Carbon Reduction and Resilience Plan 2021 to 2031 or the Lower Hutt Climate Action Pathway. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lewis. Is there any discussion? Therefore, I'll put the vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed, I declare that carried. We're now moving on to item 7 on page 18, which is the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee Forward Programme. And so briefly on this, a few comments from myself. Obviously, cycle 2 is looking very full on page 19. Cycles 3, 4, and 5 particularly have a lot of space. There will be work that fills in there, but if there's anything from members particularly that you're wanting to see come to committee this year, please do let me know and I'll discuss with officers around the timing. We know that there's some work that will come out of the long-term plan as well, but we just want to make sure that we're giving officers a heads up well in advance so we can phase in that work. Is there any questions from members? Fantastic. So, the recommendation on page 18, that we receive and note the forward program. Happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parkin. Any discussion? All in favour say aye. Those opposed, I declare that carried. We're now moving on to page 20 of information item update on Hutt City Council's approach to sponge cities. Welcoming up Tim and Daniel to the table, and anyone else from the team as well.
Kia ora,
Great.
Chair.
Yeah, we're in your hand, Tim. Just a bit of a pre-information. Obviously, this came up last year under public comment around what is council doing in this space. So thank you to you and your team for this report. Take it as read, but it'll be great to get a bit of a pre-chat from yourself around the intentionality of our kind of collective council effort, and then we'll go into questions.
Sure, yeah, and just obviously interesting, Daniel from our Parks and Reserves team and Lucy from Urban Development, kind of my co-authors. Effectively, this was a collation of information from across Parks and Urban Development and also the planning and engineering team. So, I mean, the overall headline is there's a lot going on across council in different ways and work that we're doing physically in our regulation space and in our parks and reserves. Clearly, with all things, there's a lot more we could do, but there's obviously always resourcing and cost implications. So, as I said, we don't have a sort of a defined sponge city policy, but it is a part of all work across council. And yeah, as I said, I think we are doing a lot. But yeah, to carry on and do more would actually, require a dedicated effort from the different parts of council.
Anything else from yourselves as well at this point? Great. Happy to open up for questions from members. Councillor Shaw, then Councillor Mitchell.
Just a question for me, just seeking some clarity, because I often get asked this question, and it relates to Fraser Park artificial hockey turf, where water sprinklers are frequently on, and we know that there are water restrictions. So can you just help talk me through how that works? Because I believe that there's some big storage tanks there and the water's recirculated, but I probably need a bit of a technical answer to this.
Yeah, so there is still sprinkling going on at that particular park, and that's basically just because of the cost of redoing the grass if it dies is quite significant. There is under some of the astroturf in the parks that are in the Hutt Valley sort of reservoirs for collecting rainwater. So some of these can actually be fed through to the sprinkler systems. So you sort of both reduce a bit of flooding and then you have a water reservoir for dry periods as well.
So we're not drawing on our water in any way to sprinkle the artificial turfs. It's all recirculated.
For the artificial turfs, I wouldn't expect it's being drawn from a mains water supply, no.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. There's a lot covered in this report because there's a lot that can be done in this space, and I think we've done some really good work at building it into our district plan, very timely for us, so thank you to the team for that part of it. I guess the other biggest player and partner for us is Wellington Water. Has there been any conversations with them already about how we might be able to build some of this thinking into our work program over, say, the next long-term plan period?
Probably can't answer that fully, but can certainly come back to you. That would be a question for Bruce Hodgins when it comes to the long-term planning. So yeah, I think probably to answer that, I would need to go away, and I'm happy to take that away. There are lots of discussions at all levels with Wellington Water, so certainly I can tell you they are also pushing us in our area, but in terms of long-term planning, sorry, I'd have to talk to Bruce. Yeah.
If I could just provide a comment as well, Chair.
Oh, if you hold the comment, we'll have a discussion after the questions. Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you for the reminder. I was contrasting the photographs on page 29, those basically concrete drainage channels, pretty ugly looking things in parts of our city, with the beautiful Christchurch example there. Obviously the Christchurch example, is very aesthetically pleasing, and those plants are going to filter nutrients going into that waterway. But you could also, or I'm sure, a Greater Wellington Regional Council and its attitude to plants in the floodway, that would be considered a flood impediment. It would hold up movement of floodwaters. Is it a kind of balancing act, riparian planting and leaving sort of known flood-prone areas absolutely clear so that floodwaters move quickly through them? What's the...
Yes, it is a bit of a balancing act. So part of the benefit with riparian planting is that you do stop debris which can be washed in with floods, which can then clog waterways themselves. So there is that element to it. Sometimes you do actually want to stop water going into the waterway if you can. So something like the Waifetu stream, obviously you get down to the end of it, and at that stage so much water is rushed in that the people near the end of that waterway get sort of flooded out, not by what's coming in there, it's what's come from upstream.
Yep.
So in some cases actually slowing that ingress into those waterways is going to be a good thing. So it really depends on the makeup of the waterways and the sort of water system that you've got overall.
So having heard that and looking at those two pictures which look like they've been taken, Hutt Park and Karaunui, it's not our intention to be planting out areas like that because we want to leave that free for flood movement. Is that what you're saying, or?
I think it would be something which would need to be looked at a bit more closely. I think some areas probably could be planted up a bit more thoroughly than they are. And then some areas, you might want to actually leave a bit more sparse just to basically keep water flowing where it needs to.
Cool. And what part of council is responsible for making that sort of decision?
I would say some of that would be with the Parks and Reserves team, but you also have Wellington Water in the mix there as well. So that's not a relationship which I'm entirely clear on in terms of who has sort of the most say there.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Parkin.
Try that again. Kia ora. So follow on to Councillor Edwards' question. Do we actually have the water modelling data within our district plan to actually say which pieces would benefit from slowing the water flow down and which pieces need to be clearer?
I would say we would, or we could get it done. We've got very, very advanced flooding modelling data now as part of the district plan, but also separate to that. So without 100% commitment saying, yes, we've got it, I imagine it is something if we don't, we could get from Wellington Water or just build on what we do have. So, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Lawes.
Hey, thanks for this paper. Nice to meet you, Daniel. The future opportunities is the part that's got me really excited, all the options you've put forward here. I don't like the part about we haven't got any money to do any of it though. But is there any way within council in the offices, knowing that you've scoped it all out here, that we could have someone with oversight over all of these things to tick off and monitor as we go through, just to keep over it and to know what is actually being progressed out of all of these things?
So possibly, yeah. Again, I think it's a discussion to be had across, I will say across CLT, because it is across multiple teams. So, is there an owner in council? I think I refer to it as a champion, and can that fall into existing resourcing essentially? So I think that certainly is a conversation that can be had. Probably at the director's level, just about how it falls between teams and is there resourcing here for someone effectively to be an owner, to be a champion, something like that. So yeah, that conversation can be had. Alison's not yelling at me, so I think that's okay. Yeah.
Great. Any final questions? Councillor Edwards.
Would it be useful to have a resolution from this committee saying we would like this conversation to be had and for something to come back to us about the decision?
I mean, I'm happy to give a commitment that we will have that conversation. We will take that forward. So up to you whether you want to formalise it or not.
Sorry, I have to admit that you caught me out. Emergency message, but I'll put it aside. Could you please repeat what you asked me?
The question is about a conversation sort of at CLT level about sponge cities, because it falls on the different, well, it falls across all parts of council, and is there scope for there to be perhaps an owner within council? As I said, and so the question is, does it require a resolution or not? I've given a commitment to take a paper to the CLT meetings on this and to raise it at that level. So if that is sufficient, and if Alison, you're happy with that.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And now that we've got the LTP out of the way for a while, I think there will be room on the agenda. But obviously, this is across the whole council, and the decisions are being made in also in various different departments. And I think, as those examples demonstrate, what might be good in one area of the organisation for a particular reason will not work in another. So it has to be coordinated so that Parks isn't going out and planting lovely riparian strips while the guys who are trying to manage the flooding are tearing their hair out and also tearing our plants out. So yes, it's definitely a cross-organisational discussion we have to have.
Final question, Te Tirime.
If it could just be added to the forward program, just to come back later. Thank you.
Yep, noted. Great. Thanks, team, for the paper again and for the discussion that we've had. The key thing going through this in the drafting process is being clear. Our current funding limitations are our limitations, and that's what we've drafted for the LTP. Some of the work that's already ongoing just needs that coordination and intentionality. Future annual plans or long-term plans can look at increased investment if there's particular areas that we want to ensure are done better than they currently are. But our key opportunity at this point in time is our district plan, and making sure that with our district plan, sponge cities are front of mind and how we actually go about it. And I know there's been work done from the team around ensuring there's a bit more controls in place around permeable surfaces and making sure that our city as a whole are taking on this, not just us as a council, but every resident and every landowner. I know that what I'll do, I'll put the recommendation that it is noted and received. I don't think we need to have an additional reg, but thank you, Councillor, for raising it. Councillor Mitchell, you had a comment?
I did have a comment, and I'll just respond first to the director's comments, because I was asking about Wellington Water. There is a need for a cross-organisation conversation, but there's also a need for a cross-organisations conversation with all of our partners there too. I was going to comment about how, and it's an illustration of this, there's some great things and great examples of here that things that work well in isolation, but potentially could work a lot better when there is coordination between those things. And I'll just give an example. On the bottom of page 28, there's a picture of riparian planting. It's actually behind the back of my house up in Nainai. And we talked about how riparian planting can filter water and slow water down from getting into our waterways, which is true. And when water falls onto the banks of that stream, and where Friends of Waifetu have done work as well, that water does get slowed down and filtered coming into our stream. However, all of the water that falls onto the roofs of the houses near here, onto their driveways, onto the streets, and ends up in our stormwater system, actually gets piped under the riparian planting to the edge of the stream. You can see it in the photo from Stokes Valley on the bottom of page 29. So all of that water is actually diverting all of this kind of beneficial riparian planting along the side of the stream. So I think there's conversations that could be had with Wellington Water and others about if instead that the same stormwater pipe took the water to a swale at the top of that bank, it would be slowed down, it would be filtered, coming through into the stream there, whereas currently it's taking that classic old school fast track down a pipe to get as quickly as possible into the stream, which as noted, builds up downstream there too. So there's, you know, some important thinking, I think, about the connectedness of these things and how we can make some fairly simple modifications actually to the way we go about them to make them more effective, particularly thinking about big storm events and slowing water down. So, thank you.
Any additional comment from members?
Maybe I could make a comment.
Of course.
I'll just make a comment about my experience I had at North Shore City Council. There, the environmental protection folk and the engineers worked very closely together in implementing sustainable streams, and it was actually driven out of both departments, so they made sure that, excuse me, that there was, that they were not only functional, but that they were functional and that wasn't a waste of organisational effort. I see that this is a very similar situation. In fact, it probably is suitable for something maybe that we could pick up and drive as an environmental program, but I'm not making any promises today, but I could see that there's certainly in our area, environmental sustainability, it probably is a reasonably good fit to be driving some sort of coordination there.
Councillor Edwards.
I endorse all the comments that have been made, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is that sometimes these sorts of treatments, because we're talking about our long-term plan limitations and money, as I understand it, sometimes some of these treatments are more cost-effective to do, and certainly in terms of in the future of us getting consents for some of the things that are currently happening, super expensive to meet those consents. And if there's other ways of doing things that lessen the amount of nutrients and pollutants getting in our waterways, it behoves us to explore them, and I'm really glad to hear we're going to have those conversations.
Great, so drawing members' attention to page 20. We have our recommendations on there. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lewis. Any discussion? All in favour, say aye. Those opposed, I declare that carried. Thank you, team. Agenda item 9, questions. I've received no questions before the meeting. Now moving on to item 10, exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded for the following part of the proceedings of this meeting, namely the panel members for the Low Carbon Acceleration Fund. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parkin. All in favour say aye. I declare that carried. I declare the public part of the meeting closed at 2:38 p.m. and we'll take